So, hello, welcome everyone. Natalie Julie are with me. I'm Angie Mallory, Journey to Soul. This is my YouTube channel, and I've brought my beautiful soul sisters with me here because we have been having these conscious conversations, especially around parenting because we're parents. But what you'll find is the topics that we talk about bring up they're human conversations, is that what we have? It's what I like to say. And, you know, one of the things that I love about bringing conscious conversation to you, to the public, to everybody, is that it helps us elevate ourselves and activate certain knowings within us, right? We're not meant to do this journey alone. And so I think it's really important to have these conversations together. And so I am an intuitive spiritual mentor and an EFT tapping practitioner. I'm a mom to a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old. And as I awaken, as I walk down this spiritual path of, coming back to my heart, coming back to who I really am, learning who I really am and unlearning who I'm not, or who I thought I was. Um, I realize, oh, I've lost my thought right there. Anyway, as I do that, I forgot what I was saying there. Um, yeah, don't remember. I'm a mom. And as I awaken, that's what I was going to say. As I awaken, I start to question how I'm parenting. And I start to, but in place of questioning it, I don't have anything else to put in there. It's like, oh, I don't know that I should be doing it this way. I don't know that it aligns with me and how I've changed. And so that's why we have these conversations. And that's why I personally love these conversations. And so, Julie, if you want to introduce yourself to everyone, and
Yes, of course. That was beautiful. You said so much that I love there.
thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julie, and I'm just me. I'm a mother of an 11 and 12-year-old, and I always have trouble labeling myself, putting any labels of information. I do it sometimes, and then I'm like, I don't know if that feels right. Anyway, I absolutely adore having these conversations too, because as Angie said, as we start to awaken and understand ourselves more, or try to understand ourselves more rather than what the world has told us to be, we have these questions and don't really know where to look for the answers because it's not commonplace. So when we can find each other and share our thoughts and our heart with each other, we can expand our mind and find new ways of doing things that feel completely aligned with our soul. Because when we're not feeling aligned with our soul, we can have lots of discomfort, so to speak. So, yeah, that's me. Hi, everyone. And I'm super excited to start this conversation.
And Natalie.
Natalie.
Hey guys, my name's Natalie. And I agree with Julie. I've always had problems labeling myself or describing what I do. Um, so I'm a mom, I'm a wife. Di- I've really been diving into intuitive writing again, and to my connection with nature. I've already published a book on Amazon. It's really more geared towards homeschooling families. And I'm working on my second book now, which is, I think, much more aligned with me. It's like 21 Steps to the New Earth. So I'm really, really excited about that. I'm working on it right now. Um, but yeah, I just love sharing my experiences of conscious awakening through conversations with Angie and Julie, and through my writing too. So I'm a firm believer of whoever needs to hear or read um, my message will get it at the right time, right? It's all divine timing.
It sure is. It's beautiful. And so today, so I mean, this is our first time. We have a new plan. We've been having these conscious conversations. I don't even know for how long. It's been months. Like it's been quite a while, right? Over in my group on Facebook. But all the information, if you want to reach us, if you want to access us, if you want to follow our content, will be in the description box below here on YouTube. And of course, if you like what you're hearing, it's really helpful for us. We're trying to get this message out there, get more people involved in these conversations. So if you enjoy what we're doing, it really helps us to subscribe and to like the video so that it reaches more people. Today, what we're going to be talking about is kid interrupted. We're going to be talking about interrupting. And we didn't really talk about this beforehand, but how does it impact? How does it impact dynamics? How does it shift energy, right? And what might be behind the behavior of interruption? And what are we labeling it as too? I think about that with my kids when they interrupt me or when I interrupt them, they call me on it. My kids call me out on it that I interrupt them. And I've gotten curious about, oh, that's interesting. What is it that's making me interrupt?
Mm,
So many
yeah.
good questions. Yeah. So, yeah. This is a big topic in our house for sure. Because we all get into the phase of suddenly interrupting one another. And you mentioned, what does it mean? And when I think of that, to me, it means I feel like I already know what you're going to say. So I'm just going to interrupt and say what I'm going to say. But it also means that I'm not truly listening to you. You know, I'm having a conversation in my head and just waiting to say the next thing,
Mm-hmm.
um, rather than truly listening to what the other person is trying to say to me. Um, and yeah, it gets pretty frustrating and overwhelming all around. I find that all of us in the house do it, and it's almost like it starts to snowball. So once one starts, another starts, and then it snowballs, and we're all just kind of talking over each other. And it gets extremely overwhelming and frustrating because no one's being heard and no one's being listened to. And a lot of the time, I think, you know, we end up needing to take a break, first of all, from one another if we can't communicate in a healthy way and it's ramping up even further and further. It's time to just step away for a little bit and then come back and try to each get out what we need to say, um, and be listened to. So we all do it, like I said,
Yeah.
in my house. And I've heard of the talking stick before. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you guys have heard of having a talking stick. And we have tried that in our family, but it hasn't worked. um,
I
it
feel
just
like
doesn't.
I feel like
What's
my
that?
husband would be really judgmental about that.
That was our
Is that what
experience.
happens? Yeah. That's
Like, I'm not using a talking stick.
like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. So it didn't go over so well. Although the hand on the arm
Mm-hmm.
is my absolute favorite for interruptions. So if someone wants to speak while somebody else is speaking, you put your hand on their arm, and then the person who's speaking puts their hand on the other person's hand to let them know, I acknowledge that you're here and you want to speak to me. I'm just still in this conversation. And then once you're done, you say thank you for patiently waiting and then have that conversation. And
You
that has
taught me
been like
that.
a blessing and a miracle in our life here.
Yeah.
And everyone can do it. It's so simple and you can do it anywhere. So, yeah, that's all things that came up when I was thinking about this conversation, the interruptions.
Yeah, you taught me that. That works really well with my girls, the hand thing. What I've been told by my daughter is that she'll do that and she feels like I just ignore her though for a longer time than necessary when she does that. I was like,
So that
oh,
it takes like a really long time until you're getting to her.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
even though I've acknowledged her. But I don't know sometimes if it's that she's just impatient or am I just taking a long time because I don't want to deal with whatever? I don't
Right,
know.
right. It could be a little of both.
Could be.
Right.
Sometimes it's me, man.
It's funny that you say that because as I'm thinking about it, I feel like I would completely finish my conversation before I get to them, like as they've gotten older. When they were younger, a lot of the time I would be like, one moment they want to speak to me or whatever, and then say thank you. So I do it very quicker, and I guess as the age progresses, you can take longer. So sometimes I'm actually
Mm,
thinking, as I'm speaking to the other person, I'm taking a really long time here. Like it's been 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm still talking. So then
mm.
sometimes I'll interrupt there and be like, okay, excuse me, they're waiting patiently, and then I'll go. So
Yeah. Hmm. Natalie, what do you think? What are your thoughts? What comes to mind in your
Yeah.
family?
So first of all, I love that tool. That's such a great tool, Julie, because it embodies like softness, right? Like you're just putting your hand on someone's arm, and it also embodies like awareness, right? Of like you are now aware that someone wants to talk because their hands on your arm, right? And I love also that part of acknowledgement. So that's a wonderful tool. Thank you for sharing. Um, so this actually came up. I think I brought this subject up with you ladies because I had a really intense experience. I think it was about a month ago or maybe a little longer, where I realized that I was interrupting my son all the time. And actually, I probably do this with everybody, but it was like really obvious with my son because we have a very intense, loving relationship. And when he's had enough, he just tells me, right? So he's like, "You keep interrupting me," and I'm like, I was floored, and I was like, "Oh my god." I
Mm,
do. And I was never aware of that until that moment where it was
mm,
like highlighted to me in like neon sign. Um, and then that was very, I mean, it was a very humbling experience. And even like I was humiliated with myself too, to be honest. Like, my goodness, I'm like interrupting him all the time, right? Um, and like it's interesting to kind of dive into like where does this come from, because
mm,
I don't know how other parents were when their children were little or when with babies, right? But you always, it seems like to me, at least in my experience, that I was like the narrator for my kids, right, when they were babies, like not just narrating
mm.
like, oh, you're going for a walk and you're describing like squirrels and stuff to your baby, but also the narrator of, when I'm talking to other people, talking about my baby, like I'm just like talking for them. And then as they grow older, that habit still stays, right? So it's like you feel like you need to speak for your child. Um, but then if you're not aware of it, then it can turn into like this really sticky situation of you're always interrupting them, right?
Mm.
Whether that's verbally interrupting them, like just like jumping into the conversation, or interrupting them in a way like you do things for them, right? Like you make them their sandwich even though they're like 10 years old and they could probably make their own sandwiches at that point. You know what I mean? So kind of like also that combination of like helicopter parenting. So like interruption can take different, can look different ways. But for me specifically, it was like that verbal interruption, right? Or like brushing them off, or like changing the subject because it was getting uncomfortable, or even changing the subject to kind of like distract them out of a meltdown or a temper tantrum. But yeah, like it can snowball, like it can get out of hand really quickly, especially if we're not aware, right?
Yeah, that's so true. I love what you're saying too about the like I think it's really important to acknowledge what you acknowledge about feeling humiliated. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing when we uncover these things because it's like you get blindsided because you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, you know what I mean? And then they've said this to you, your child has said this to you, and you're like, no, I don't do that. Is the instinct to be like, but then it's like you stop and you're like, oh, I've been doing that to you all this time. And there is like humiliation, embarrassment, it rises up, right? And it's
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, I love that you bring that up because those are the emotions that are wonderful and acceptable that people often label as negative or bad emotions, but they're here for us to be empowered to make a new choice. And you're right, it can be so uncomfortable. Like, I've faced that many times with my children where they say something to me and I'm like, oh, yeah, I am doing that.
Yeah.
And it's funny that this actually goes into the next point that I had written down here, which says, as usual, I have to catch myself first and set the example. I have to apologize and work to do better. And I mean, that is being a conscious parent right there. We're showing them the steps and the experience of how we can become aware of our choices and then choose to do something different if it doesn't feel aligned with us. And that is okay. We're not perfect. We're not meant to do things perfect all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it definitely can feel super uncomfortable, but those are the feelings that help us to move forward in a way that feel better for everyone. That
Yeah.
changes the energy, right? The energy of interruption. It
Yeah.
really, to me, like what comes to my mind is devaluing that person. And I mean,
Yes.
we're not doing that consciously. We're not consciously trying to devalue our children or anyone we interrupt. But that is the energy that kind of goes with it.
That's
And
exactly what I've learned.
yeah, again, moving into conscious living, shifting our mindset into the energy and
Mm.
understanding how the energy works is huge too. And being able to do that through our emotions and our uncomfortable emotions is one of the best ways I've learned to be able to change my choices, to make
Yeah.
new conscious choices and change the energy around me, whether that be with people or objects or anything, my life in general.
Yeah, what's made this so important to me is that energy you're talking about. To me, I call it the I don't have time for you. That's what it literally, that's like this, that's the message almost I feel that gets transmitted to, to Alice. Like, it's like, I interrupt you because I don't have time to hear you say it because I already think I know what you're going to say. And I don't have time to hear you say it. And
Right?
feel that, like, feel,
Yeah, and then
that doesn't feel
feel how
good.
yucky that feels. And like, bottom
Yeah.
line is, I don't have time for you. I have
Yeah.
had this thought in my head, with my children, whether I'm interrupting them or Natalie, as you said, rushing them off and
Yeah.
being like, um, that energy and that feeling of, I just don't have time for you. I don't have time for you right now. And man, do I not want my children to feel that.
I
My
won't make time for you. It's like I won't make time for you too. And
yeah,
that feels like I won't prioritize you. I won't make time for you
right.
because
And
you say it too slow. Like that just like when I sit with that, that's where I'm like, oh, that's not what I want to. Oh, that's not what I want to tell my children at all.
yeah, Grayson, just as you said that, Grayson popped into my head, and he takes longer to say something and he gets interrupted all the time. And I think he just said it the other day, I'm always being interrupted because we've had this conversation for a long time and we're constantly, making the choice to do better and we slip into old habits. We're human, and
Mm-hmm.
so we bring it up again, and it's, yeah, it's so uncomfortable every single time it comes up. I feel bad. I'm like, oh, my heart, I want you to be able to express yourself
Yeah.
and feel like you can express yourself and you have all the time and space you need. Um, and then on the opposite hand, I have Stephen, who can express himself extremely well. And sometimes when it comes to the interruption or whatever, it's the like, okay, I'm done with this conversation right now. We've had this conversation for 45 minutes about this one topic. And,
I'm done.
I'm ready to interrupt you. I need some space. So we've had conversations about that too, like allowing how much energy are we willing to exchange before it starts to deplete us as well, right? Because we're always trying to think of filling our own energy. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, I've had enough of this conversation right now. I am interrupting him, but we can come back to it at another time. I can only handle this much. So I guess that's kind of almost the opposite end of the spectrum
It's
from,
interesting that you have those two experiences.
yeah.
That is very interesting. But it goes on the other hand too of setting boundaries and protecting your energy, right? Natalie, I'm curious about so you came into this knowing, what have you discovered? What would you say? Where does the interrupting come from for you?
I think for me, it was an unconscious habit because so my son was started speaking a little later than maybe other people started speaking. And like we went to speech therapist a few years ago, which helped tremendously. I think it was also that of and any moms are listening, or any caregivers listening will probably completely understand me. You know, when your toddler or your young child speaks, and some people don't understand, so then you just kind of repeat it back to everybody. I think that kind of got in the habit, and then again, it's just that assumption, that unaware, that unconscious assumption of I already know what he's gonna say, right? So that kind of habit, yeah, so I think a lot of it came from that. And then when he called me out on it, and he keeps calling me out on it because sometimes I'll forget. He's like, "You're interrupting me again." And I'm like, "Ooh, like thank you for reminding me." Um, because again, and I think it's really important that we encourage our kids to remind us, in a kind way whenever possible. I mean, hey, we're human sometimes. It's hard to be, you can't be kind 24/7, right? Um, but yeah, and it was really interesting what you were saying. I think it was you, Julie, when you were saying something about um, you're kind of like assuming what they're going to say, or because they take a longer time to say it, right? And this really resonated with me because, um, yeah, my son, again, he was kind of a late talker, and he always just takes that extra time to share his message, say whatever he's going to say. And I feel in our society, it's all like rush, 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 go, 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 like get it out already, right? And that's not something we want to foster, right? Like, don't we want to foster, like, what do you want to foster with your family? Do you want to foster, open conversations and just giving people space? So sometimes, like, it's like, like I bite my tongue or the inside of my lip. I don't do it as often now. Um, but yeah, just letting people take the amount of time they need to share their message. Because I found that more and more as I am going deeper into conscious awareness that sometimes it takes a little bit for the message to come through, right? I don't know where the message from my son is coming from, right? Um, because sometimes, especially if it's, from your higher self or, you know, infinite intelligence or however we want to label it, like it sometimes it has to translate, right? Because it has to go through ego, or if you're, if you're feeling frustrated, like little kids and even adults can be so quick to be frustrated, and then it kind of like jumbles up the message that you're trying to say, which that adds to the frustration, right? So if you're, interrupting, or you're assuming they're going to say something, like I did this earlier today. I interrupted them like really quickly because I thought he was going to say something rude in front of someone, and it wasn't even that at all. Again, and then it was a huge blow up because he was pissed off at me. Um, and then after a little bit, we kind of went into a different area of the house, and then I apologized, and he's like, "I was just going to say this," and I'm like, "Oh." Like, I'm so sorry that I assumed you were going to say something else. So again, like just be real with your kids, guys. Like, well, sorry, my daughter's here. If you messed up, um, I probably shouldn't say that word on YouTube. But if you messed up, it's okay to acknowledge it and tell your kid, like, "Oh my God, like I'm so sorry, I did that. And thanks for letting me know, and I'll try and be more aware of it, like
There's
as of
so
now,
much power
right?"
in that. There's so much power in just being authentically you with your
Yeah, because then you
children.
are authentically you in that moment,
Yes.
and you're
Yeah.
sharing that moment with another being, with another human,
And
right?
you're teaching them how to be authentically them as they're feeling it real time.
Yeah, it is so valuable to our experience and their experience. Absolutely.
It
Just to
is.
let them know, like we're all in this life doing this thing, trying to do the best we can, and we're not perfect. We're not perfect, but when we become consciously aware of something that doesn't feel good to us, we can apologize if we need to and make a better choice next time. Like that's something that comes up a lot. Like I'll do better next time. We say that a
Mhm.
lot in my house. I'll do better next time. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. And actually, sometimes it's been annoying me recently. I don't necessarily know why. I don't know if it's become, I felt like it's become automatic or
Mm.
something. Like, we're not really thinking about it. It's just now an automatic response. I'm sorry, I'll do better next time. Because as I've mentioned in other videos, I like to have that conversation. So after there's a time of separation, if things are getting heated or, someone's being disrespectful, I like to then come together and discuss what choices we made. And I have to do this the same as we're, talking about what choice did I make that wasn't kind or didn't feel good, was disrespectful. And then what choice can I make next time if I don't want to be in this same situation? So I guess maybe when I'm just hearing, I'm sorry, I'll do better next time, I feel like we're skipping that step. We need to still have that discussion of what we did and what we want to do next time.
Right. What does it
make
mean
that
to do
conscious
better
choice.
next time?
Yeah, what does that even mean? Yeah.
Because the 4-year-old doesn't necessarily know, right?
Right, right.
Anybody
I
really
don't
might not.
necessarily
We
know.
don't know. Yeah.
Sometimes, I'm like, I don't know, what am I going to do next time? That's why we have these conversations.
It's so true. You need these conversations because it gets reflected to you then. It's like, oh, yeah. It's like, you could be doing one little different thing. You could be telling your story, Natalie, and I'm just like, oh, I haven't thought about that. I do this, but oh, I haven't thought about that. For me, I think the interrupting, I resonate with everything you're both saying. It's I don't have time to listen to your whole thing because I feel like I know where it's going. Right. But the truth is, you don't know. That doesn't, when we think we know what somebody else is going to say, we're holding them to a previous version of them because it's a previous version of them that said that thing that you think you know. But that doesn't allow for them to change at all. And we're changing in every moment. We're evolving. We're adjusting. We're changing. We're becoming more and more conscious in every moment. And so that includes our children. I think it's really important. Like that includes our children. And they so much could have happened between, even yesterday and today when they're saying something.
It's funny that you say that because as you said that, I was thinking, yeah, we've always kind of accepted that children change and grow. But when it comes to adults, I feel like people just kind of expect adults to be the same person and not continue to change and grow. And I think that's part of this whole shift in our planet, in the energy and everything, is that us as adults now, we're changing and shifting and growing so rapidly as well,
Yeah.
as our children. But yeah, I love that you brought that up about holding them to the standards of who they were. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we're doing. Like,
And we can start now with our children of like recognizing that and applying that to adults too. So this is, we can take this conversation to adults too and look at, and the invitation I think is to get curious now, get curious of where you're interrupting,
Mhm.
and get curious about allowing your children to tell you. I think that's important too, not getting offended. Like I
Yeah.
used to get offended in the beginning and then I realized like, wait, I'm teaching her this though. And she's using her voice and telling me. And Kyle and I started talking about it and being like, no, we can't get mad at her. Like
Yeah. She's applying the tools that you're teaching.
literally.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't
Like
then
that's
shut it
amazing.
down.
That's amazing,
Yeah,
right?
And they're very good at applying it quicker than us.
Yes.
Um, and then yeah,
so
so
then maybe
just
like,
give
Maybe
yourself
that's
a
why
high
we're
five.
offended. Like,
Yeah.
whoa, wait,
oh, I'm not ready for this.
is that what it looks like? Oh,
That mirror came too fast.
oh my goodness,
Yeah.
so funny. What a great conversation. We're coming to the end of it though, so I'll just, if you guys want to share any last thoughts about it, yeah,
For me, it always, I mean, with every single thing, the last thought is always, it's the conscious thought, choice, and action, right? And as we become aware of these, I don't want to say shortcomings, or how about as we become aware of the uncomfortable emotions that come up in us, or uncomfortable feelings that come up, that is our opportunity for personal power and to align ourselves even further with our soul and make that conscious thought, choice, and action.
Yeah, I love that. That was a beautiful finale there.
It was, yeah, well said, Julie.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, and again, I'm all about awareness. Um, so next time, just recognize when you're interrupting someone, whether that's your kid or your spouse or whoever, and don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Give yourself like brownie points that you recognize that you interrupted someone. And the more and more you do it, you're going to see a trend. Um, and say it out loud. Be like, oh, crap, I interrupted you. I'm so sorry. Please continue. And then bite your tongue.
Yeah, that was the final thought I was going to say too, is don't be hard on yourself. Just notice it. That's the invitation. Just to notice it. And then I love what you said, like, yeah, like call it out first.
Yes.
Call it out like, oh my gosh, I interrupted you. I'm so sorry. And if you want them to stop interrupting you, that's how you do it, by doing it first.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's the end of episode 1. So you'll notice I didn't know about changing the view. So I don't know if it changed for you guys initially. So when we have the recording, it's probably just going to show each of us talking at once. And then I changed the view on the video to have all 3 of us on the screen at the same time. So we lived and we learned. This is a learning experience.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for episode 2.
Yeah, thank you. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
all.